2022 has been another eventful year for us gamers. We've had the usual dizzying highs, disappointing lows, and everything in between. There's also been the usual plethora of controversies, some of which it looks like will be continuing well into 2023. For me personally, it's been a decent and enjoyable gaming year, with the arrival of some long-awaited releases, nostalgic retro throwbacks, and even the odd unofficial release, all of which have been contributing to my gaming hours that I've racked up over the year, of which the games on this list have been some of my favourites. Now, there's been some games released this year that I've not managed to play yet, and some games on this list may not necessarily have been released this year, but these are the games that I've played in 2022 that have really stood out for me. So with that, welcome to Fistful of Gamepad, I'm Rick, and these are my top 5 favourite games that I've played in 2022. But first, I need to give a few honourable mentions to a few games that, despite me really enjoying them, for one reason or another, didn't quite make this top 5. The first game on that list is Resident Evil 1.5, which only finds itself on the honourable mentions list due to it being a work in progress and an unofficial release. But for anyone like me who loves Resident Evil and is aware of the story of Resident Evil 2, the original that is, not the remake, this game is the stuff of gaming folklore and legend. I enjoyed this game so much I did a whole video on it and can't recommend it enough to any Resident Evil fan. Up next we have Scorn, a game that was in development for years and finally saw the light of day this year. Released to mixed reviews, I, however, loved its dark, unsettling, ambient atmosphere as you navigate your way around this nightmarish, biomechanical, Giga-inspired hellscape. It's only a few hours long, but the grotesquely beautiful graphics, unsettling sound, and relatively straightforward puzzles kept me hooked. Another honourable mention needs to go to Capcom Fighting Collection, a compilation of some of Capcom's best and most underrated 2D fighting games. It includes all 5 games of the Darkstalkers series, which for me was worth the price of the game alone. There's also games like Cyberbots, Red Earth or Warzard, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, Hyper Street Fighter 2 Anniversary Edition, and Super Gem Fighter Minimix, which is also known as Pocket Fighter. These are the games you would have seen in arcades back in the 90s, so to be able to play them at home with all the additional settings and extra content available can only be a good thing. My final honourable mention goes to Rage 2. Now, this was initially released back in 2019, and I recently picked it up for about £4, and I've got to say, it's hands down the best £4 I've ever spent, as I sank so many hours into this game. The action is slick, fast and frantic. The game still looks good today, with some great booming sound effects from the arsenal of weapons that you use to take out the wide array of Wasteland Marauders. I had such a fun time playing this and really can't recommend it enough, especially for the price that it's going for at the minute. It is dirt cheap. Okay, now on to the top 5. First up on my list of my top 5 favourite games I played in 2022 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. If, like me, you grew up loving the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you will have no doubt spent your time in arcades and bowling alleys sinking all your 20p's into the huge 4-player arcade machine, before then playing the home version on whichever console you had at the time. Shredder's Revenge takes what was great about those games and adds the power of modern day graphics to give a bright, colourful and hugely enjoyable experience. Coupled with the great sound, unlockable characters and up to 6-player co-op, this, for me, was the best of the 2D retro-inspired beat-em-ups this year. Pick up the Cowabunga collection and you've got yourself the ultimate Turtles video game collection. Up next at number 4, I chose Ghosts 'n Goblins Resurrection. Now, I picked this game up when it was released last year, and initially I felt I just couldn't get into it. However, once I realised that the main cause of this was the terrible Switch control pad, and once I connected my Wii U Pro controller via the 8-bit Do Bluetooth adapter, I was able to enjoy the game 1,000 times more, as I felt I had proper control over Arthur that was needed to play such a full-on, intense arcade action platformer. As a huge Ghosts 'n Goblins and Ghouls 'n Ghosts fan, I saw Resurrection as more of a best-of compilation or a remaster of the best levels from the initial 2 games in this classic series. I wasn't initially keen on the art style, but over time I must admit it has grown on me, but I still prefer the originals. The sound and music are absolutely on point, with remixes of the famous classic tracks from the previous games. This game can be absolutely relentless in its difficulty, but there are numerous difficulty settings to choose from and upgrades to collect along the way to help Arthur dispatch the forces of evil. There are also different routes to take, which adds to the replayability. While it doesn't surpass the likes of Ghouls and Ghosts or Super Ghouls and Ghosts, but let's be honest, what can? If you're a fan of the series, this is definitely one to pick up. In at number 3 we have Evil Dead the Game. This is a co-op survival horror game from the team that brought you the equally brilliant World War Z, or World War Z. You choose from one of the characters from the famous horror franchise, each belonging to their own specific class, and must team up with 3 other friends, or bots, to complete set missions which revolve around finding the pages of the Necronomicon, as well as the Kandarian dagger, which you must then use to banish the forces of evil before they, and an endless stream of deadites, try and tear you a new one. Luckily, you have a wide selection of characters, each with their own specific skills and perks to choose from, as well as a wide selection of weapons and upgrades to pick up along the way to help you dispatch said deadites. Graphically, the game is a feast for the eyes for any Evil Dead fan, with all the famous locations lovingly recreated, and along with the eerie sound, creepy music, and of course the vocal talents of Ash himself, Bruce Campbell, all make for a game that really captures the spirit, tone and feel of the films.
Back to hell for you, shit.
There are some single player missions available which are rather challenging, but overall this is a game that's best experienced with a group of mates.
Here! I nailed you, didn't I, you little sucker?
At number 2 on my list of my favourite games of 2022 is Huntdown. This was released back in 2020 and it somehow flew right under my radar and I didn't discover it till earlier this year. But once I did, it's become one of the games that I've played the most this year. You play as one of 3 badass bounty hunters and must clean up the futuristic dystopian streets of all the various evil crime gangs that are running amok. This is a retro-inspired, side-scrolling arcade shooter which pays homage to the classic action films of the 80s with its style and sound. It's clear that the developers were huge 80s action film fans, as there are loads of little nods, winks and references to these films included throughout the game. The action is fast-paced, controls are tight and responsive, with graphics that hark back to the 16-bit days of old, along with an amazing 80s synth rock soundtrack that you'll be humming for days after playing the game. There's even a CRT filter option for that authentic retro feel. In 2-player co-op mode, the game is even more enjoyable as you team up to unleash double the crime-fighting carnage, picking up numerous weapons from shotguns to flamethrowers to All Painless and the Cobra Assault Cannon. Overall, Huntdown is one of the most enjoyable games I played all year and I can't recommend it enough.
Rise and shine.
And in at number 1, and the game I've enjoyed the most this year, is Ghostwire Tokyo on the PS5. Set in the modern day, the entire population of Tokyo suddenly disappears, leaving only lost souls, vengeful spirits and stray cats and dogs roaming the streets. You team up with a powerful spirit to rescue your kidnapped sister, save the lost souls and rid the city of the evil spirits and the occultists that have taken over. Along the way, there are side quests to complete to build up both your skill level and your ability to upgrade your powers. You do this by using your elemental magic powers to defeat various evil spirits, all of which are inspired by Japanese folklore. This first-person action-adventure game is graphically stunning and delivers a vision of Tokyo that is spectacular in its depiction of both its modern city, which includes famous landmarks such as Shibuya Crossing and Tokyo Tower, as well as the more traditional areas such as temples and torii gates. All of this is coupled with a haunting feeling you get from navigating the city, which is inhabited solely by spirits. The feeling of isolation is further enhanced by the quiet desolateness of the city, with the only sounds coming from the rain falling or faint sounds from the wailing spirits. Controls are tight and responsive as you traverse the rooftops of Tokyo and engage in spectacular scraps with the evil spirits. This is a game that uses Japanese folklore and culture to aid its storytelling, which I found hugely interesting. This, along with the amazing graphics, atmospheric sound, upgradable powers, fantastically eerie enemy design and intuitive controls make Ghostwire Tokyo my favourite game of 2022. And there we have it. Those are my favourite games of 2022. Let me know in the comments below what your favourite games of the year have been, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again.